Good morning. It's book club with the Energy Bus, and we're starting on chapter 25. And apparently that was my intro. And if you're not on these, then you should know that we just have a good time too. So, okay, I'm going to read and then we will talk. So, okay, the first thing it says is the answer would not come from joy. So I had to go back and look at what the question was, right? So George says, I don't know how to do this. How do I lead with heart? And then the answer would not come from joy, but from someone else on the bus. Someone who had hardly spoken, but who had a lot of experience with being a positive, contagious leader. His name was Jack, and he was a middle-aged man with a bald head and one of those big, white, sparkling smiles that made you smile. When he spoke, everyone listened, and now was his time to tell George what he knew. It's time for you to become the CEO of the energy company, Jack commanded with the confidence of a seasoned leader as he fixed his tie and brushed off his stiff suit jacket. George thought this guy had completely lost his mind. Sir, I'm just a manager, not even an executive. I've got 2 days. Tell me how I'm going to be the CEO of my company and what it has to do with leading from the heart. First, call me Jack. Second, CEO doesn't stand for Chief Executive Officer anymore. It stands for Chief Energy Officer. Why energy? Because energy is the currency of personal and professional success today. If you don't have it, you can't lead, inspire, or make a difference. And the great thing about being a Chief Energy Officer is that anyone in your company, including you, can become one. Deciding to become a Chief Energy Officer means that you share positive, powerful, and contagious energy with your coworkers, employees, and customers. It means you communicate from the heart, Jack said as he put his hand on his chest. Now, George, I'm sure you heard that the big buzzword in business today is emotional intelligence. George nodded as Marty yelled from the back. Research says it's responsible for 80% of adult success. Yes, it is, Marty, Jack added. And what emotional intelligence, EI, really is all about tapping the power of your heart when you're leading, selling, and communicating. EI and heartfelt leadership are one and the same. It's all about communicating effectively and contagiously with others. And you know what this means when you really simplify it? It means that people like you, respect you, and they want to follow you. Now, I'm not saying you can become a Chief Energy Officer overnight, but if you're going to lead your team to victory on Friday, you have to start now. Then quietly he asked, can I tell you a little story? Of course, answered George. I found that interesting after Jubilee. Before your eyes, you see me, a confident leader. I know who I am, I know what I'm here to do, and I know how to lead. Not only am I the Chief Executive Officer of my company, but I am indeed one of the Chief Energy Officers as well. But several years ago, this was not the case. Several years ago, just like you, I was on the bus and joy, dear joy, truly an angel sent from heaven, saved my job, my company, and my life. Do you want to know how? George nodded as his eyes were fixed on this confident leader. I was running a major division in my company. They had handpicked me out of business school years before, and many of the higher-ups called me the chosen one. I had all the knowledge in the world. I had the resume, the pedigree, and the work ethic. Man, I worked hard. For 25 years, I ran up the corporate ladder of success. But looking back, what I see I didn't have was heart. I wasn't a real leader. I kicked people off my bus all the time without thinking about it, and I led by fear, and fear doesn't last. It had worked early in my career, but over time, we had severe retention and morale problem in my division, and productivity had dropped significantly. Performance plunged. Negativity grew and sales dropped so low, we almost caused the company to go bankrupt. The board wanted to fire me, but one guy, my mentor, who was the president of the company, believed in me and said he would give me a chance to turn the situation around. But I didn't have any hope. I had failed and decided to give up, and I mean give all of it up. But wouldn't you believe, on the one day I had decided to leave early to give up not just my job, but my life, I met joy. George sat there in shock, saying no under his breath. Yes, George, I was going to give it all up. The pain was too big, the failure too large. The expectation I had never lived up to. I know what you're thinking. Looking back, it's hard to believe. I can't even believe that that had been my thought process back then, but I was down, real down, until Joy lifted me up. Her smile made my day, her words energized me, and she woke me up. So I decided not to give up and started taking her bus to work. You know, I drive 20 extra minutes just to get to the bus stop on her route. I became a chief energy officer because of her, and now I've developed a thriving company filled with chief energy officers who use her 10 rules to create success and positive energy every day. She saved my life and job. So now I want to help you, George. That's how positive energy works. A life touches a life that touches a life. It spreads one person at a time. And to help you spread positive energy to your team and the world, you need to know rule number 7, which answers your question about how to lead with heart. With happy tears in her eyes, Joy directed Danny to show George rule number 7. Here's what it said. Enthusiasm attracts more passengers and energizes them during the ride. Joy wanted to speak, but she was still choked up. No matter how many times she heard Jack tell that story, it still brought tears to her eyes. She remembered the day they met. In fact, she remembered every meaningful conversation she had ever had on her bus. And as she looked at George, she saw another great opportunity to help change the life of someone who had so much to give, but just needed to learn how to give it. She wanted him to succeed as much as he did, and he knew he was in good company with a man who had not only learned her principles, but who had lived them and shared them every day in his company. Jack looked at the sign Danny held up and looked at George. Their eyes met, and Jack continued sharing his energy and knowledge with a guy who needed him more now than ever. Chief energy officers live and work with enthusiasm, George. They tap the power of their heart by getting excited about being alive, by filling up with loads of positive energy, and by being optimistic about life and work. They don't let fear stop them. No, they charge forward with positive and powerful energy and look at challenges like the one you're facing on Friday as an opportunity to learn, grow, and succeed. Marty yelled once again from the back of the bus. Enthusiasm comes from the Greek word entheos, which means inspired or filled with the divine. Excuse me. Indeed it does, Jack confirmed, and I'm here to tell you, George, that when you get excited and enthusiastic about your life and work, you bring this powerful divine energy to everything you do, and people notice. They can see it and feel it. When you're enthusiastic, people want to get on your bus. Your bus is energized and people say, hey, I want to get on that bus. Employees from different departments want to help you out. You get a reputation as someone people want to work for. Customers want to work with you. Salespeople come to you for advice because they're looking for that enthusiastic energy to increase their sales. When you live and work with enthusiasm, people are drawn to you like moths to a light. Walt Whitman said that we convince by our presence. I highlighted that. And when you're enthusiastic, you project an energy that convinces people to get on and stay on your bus. It's powerful energy, George. Joy taught me this and it works. Jack was convincing, but he didn't need to convince George that it worked. As Jack spoke, George remembered how enthusiasm had helped him get his first job. They had told him they loved his fire. He thought about how enthusiasm in trying to get a date with his wife eventually influenced her to give him a shot. He reflected on how enthusiastic he had been during his early years at the energy company and wondered what had happened. Where along the way had he lost his spark? But that was the past, he thought. Now he just wanted to feel that fire burn inside him again. He wanted to be everything Jack was describing, and as he was listening, he was thinking about how to bring the energy to work today. Jack continued his teaching. Remember what Joy also said. When you feel good, others around you feel good. Well, when you're enthusiastic, you feel real good, and this makes the people around you feel real good. I once had one customer tell me that he had bought from my sales guy, not necessarily because they loved our product, but they loved his energy. They were excited because he was excited. They were excited about being on his bus. I don't care what product you're selling, what division or team you're leading, or what product launch you are presenting, people are always buying you and your energy. The simple truth is that when you're excited, people get excited about where your bus is going, and this makes them want to get on and stay on your bus. I got to stop for a second. But don't you guys all talk at once. Okay. I'm back now. Joy had been quiet for some time, and although she admired how her protege had become a master of teaching her principles, she wanted to make sure George knew something that Jack hadn't mentioned, so she joined the conversation. But this doesn't mean you're all fake and annoying either, George. Enthusiasm doesn't mean you bounce off the walls all hyper and all. The kind of enthusiasm Jack and I talk about is real. You don't have to force it or push it. You have to live it. You let your presence do the convincing. So just focus on getting excited and enthusiastic yourself and let your energy do the talking. Focus today on becoming the heart of your team. Realize that just as every cell in the body beats to the frequency of the heart, everyone around you will beat to your frequency and your energy. Just as the heart radiates energy to every cell, you must radiate positive energy and enthusiasm to every member of your team. Most of all, teach this to your team. Let them know they too can become a chief energy officer. Let them know that anyone can become the heart of the organization, because no matter where you are and what you do, when you live and work with enthusiasm, people around you will beat to your frequency. Is that why my team was in such disarray? George asked, looking at Joy and Jack. Because I was broadcasting a negative signal and negative energy on a daily basis? Well, honestly, yes, Jack answered. Negative people often tend to create negative cultures, whereas positive corporate cultures are created by positive people. The energy of a company or team is cultivated by the energy and enthusiasm of the leaders, and each person in the organization who contributes to the collective energy and culture of it. In turn, this collective energy influences each person's energy in the organization, creating a perpetual cycle of positive or negative energy. So when people ask me what my company's most important asset is, I tell them it's energy. Not gas or oil, I say, but the people, the energy they bring to their work. All this positive energy is what makes us successful. Numbers don't lie, Marty said, looking to add research to the discussion. Daniel Goleman, author of Emotional Intelligence, explains that a positive company with a positive corporate culture will outperform their negative counterparts every time. It's also important to note that if you would invest in companies voted to be the best places to work, where people are full of positive energy and enthusiasm, you would significantly outperform the stock market averages. So it appears that a positive culture is also good for revenue and the bottom line. You hear that, Joy said? It's all about energy, George. What's been missing is enthusiasm. The most successful teams have it. Every team wants it, but very few have it, and it starts with you. When you have it, they'll have it. When you get energized, they'll get energized. So it's time to take your energy meter to the next level. Are you ready, George? Yes, I am. He was fired up and ready to take action. The bus was a few miles from his office, but he felt like jumping off and running the rest of the way. Yet he knew that he would only tire himself out, and he needed all the energy he could muster right now. So he decided to stay on the bus and listen to what else Joy would have to say. That was a good thing, because the next rule he would learn would completely change everything. And we're going to talk for a little while because I got to stop reading for a minute.
All right. So what were some of the main points that really stuck out for you, Jenny, on this? I know you had a lot, and so did you, Kelly. You said that you had a lot highlighted as well.
I think it's just the enthusiasm, like the attitude. It's attitude. And we know that. That's not like new ground or anything that we cover. But I think even more, like we know about positive attitude, that you need to be positive. But a lot of times I don't think enthusiasm is really what we think about when we think about positive energy or positive attitude. It's just, you know, don't say negative things, don't do, but that's not being enthusiastic. For me, sometimes that's just shutting up. So
it's true though. That's a really good point, is that a lot of times when we talk about being positive, we're more talking about not being negative.
Yes.
Not necessarily being positive, enthusiastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of times for me, the best way I can be positive is just to say nothing. But if I was being really enthusiastic about what we were talking about, I would be able to talk and be positive and not just feel like the best thing for me to do was say nothing.
Right.
And that might take some time, but it's okay.
I like, around that enthusiasm note, I liked towards the end when he was talking about enthusiasm doesn't mean you have to bounce off the walls and be all hyper. And I think a lot of times that's kind of what people think. They think in order to be positive, they just have to be almost obnoxious, and it doesn't have to be that way. And that's kind of how you can tell if somebody's really being enthusiastic and positive from the heart versus surface, right? If they're kind of over the top, overdoing it, sometimes it comes off almost as fake, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, and Ellen, you usually use this example, but I'm going to, like where it says we convince by our presence, and like Pam, Pam does not have to be talking. She doesn't have to be over the wall excited about the whippet or anything else. When the woman walks into a room, everybody's like, oh, there's Pam. And, you know, it's just, she just kind of puts off positive. And I know there's sometimes when she doesn't necessarily feel all the positive she's giving off.
Right.
But
that's natural. You can't be that way 100%.
You can take a deep breath and make you believe it. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That, what Ellen was just saying, it's like, you don't have to, he said, you don't have to force it or push it. And it's so true. You don't have to, you just have to feel it, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, you feel the enthusiasm.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kelly. And I think that, again, that goes back to the carpenter. It goes, and they keep bringing up the heart in this. And I think that's that like deeper level of leadership, because I think, you know, the surface level of leadership is, okay, as a leader, I need to get these people to do X, Y, Z in order to be successful. Like it's more like a formula, right? But when you really are going to that deeper level of leadership, that deeper connection, it is about the heart, and it comes from the heart. And that's one of those frustrating parts of leadership, because it's like, well, you just have to have heart. And people are like, how do I have heart? Like, it's one of those things that it's hard to explain in order to like help them tap into it. And it's kind of something they organically have to discover themselves. And that is one of the biggest things about when it comes to impactful leadership. A lot of times it's an internal thing. Like, we can model the behavior, we can have them read a book that gives them rules or steps or whatever, or formulas to get there, but they have to come to that realization themselves. You have to go inward in order to like get to that level. And I think there's plenty of successful leaders that don't operate on that level. But I mean, I guess the question that I want to ask all of you is, would that be success to you? Would it be success to you if you were a leader getting the job done and, you know, building something that, you know, is making money and impacting lives and doing all that, but you're not fully tapped into it, you're not fully connected? You know, is that success to you? Because it might be to some people. To some people, they might like want to live on the surface, you know. But for me, that's like one of the big parts of the leadership is having that connection with people. And, you know, so Jenny, I have to call you out. So Jenny did her talk yesterday on the Tough Talk champion, whatever. And she did I know it's all these names of things. And in her video, you know, she talked about the people that were there for her and that reached out to her and that helped support her through some of the tough times. And that's that deeper level of leadership. That's where I want to live. Am I always there? No. I think that's kind of impossible, because our own personal lives get in the middle of things, right? And we have our own drama or just situations going on outside of the business. And so sometimes it's hard because all of your heart and energy is going towards this thing, this personal thing that's going on. And you can't share that, and you can't make that connection that deep because it's tiring. It taxes on you, you know, it's very taxing. And so, but that is, I think that's kind of, so that level of leadership is what got through to Jenny, and what touched her heart was the way people reached out, you know. Am I right?
I think sometimes it's really easy to do that surface leadership. Mm-hmm. It's not as emotionally draining, and you can go a long time being the boss, even though we say, well, wait, you know, you don't have a boss, this is your own business, but I need you to do this. Right. You don't have a boss, but you know, and it's hard. Like, so Saturday, after we got off Jubilee, I spent a lot of time calling or texting the people on my team. I'm going to be very honest with you. My initial reaction was, I'm going to call them all to make sure they know. And then I started looking at my bus list and thought, if I call this person, I'm going to be on the phone for 45 minutes. I'm going to accomplish nothing. I'll be lucky to even tell her why I called, because I'm going to hear about her kids, her health, and everything else. So her, I texted. So I got selected, okay? But the one girl I called, I only talked to every great once in a while. And I called her, and she's never done any more than buy samples every once in a while. But when she buys them all. So it's like always a really good order whenever she buys them. And I was like, hey, I just want to see if you knew this. And she started talking. And she said, she goes, well, she goes, I was never supposed to have kids. And I said, yeah, I know. And she goes, so I'm pregnant. And she goes, I'm a very high health risk. And she goes, so there's the COVID thing. And she goes, and I've been working from home. Well, I got an email after 14 years of working for TerraTech in Fremont that they had discontinued my job. And as of next Friday, I have no job. She goes, not even a phone call, just an email that says your job has been, done. She goes, so I'm pregnant. That was never supposed to happen. She goes, I'm high health risk. Now I don't have a job. And she goes, and I'm just not real sure what I'm going to do. So we just started talking about, and I said, Abby, that's a lot to have in your head right now. I said, but if you need something to tide you over, this could help. And I said, and you can stay off your feet. You can take care of your health. You can be at home, and you've been on the computer for the last 6 months. So and she's not on Facebook. I said, and you don't have to get on Facebook. I said, if you've been doing Zoom meetings or whatever, I said, you can continue to do those, start with your friends and go from there. And she goes, well, I was thinking about it. She goes, but I really didn't. She goes, I didn't want to bother you. And I was like, oh my God, right? So like, if nothing else comes from those phone calls, that was worth it. And for me, it's worth it if she can make some money. But what was really worth it to me was that now she feels comfortable calling me. If she needs to talk, she can call, and that's fine. And I don't know, that's just, that would be horrible to be sitting in an apartment somewhere by yourself. And she's excited about being pregnant, but she's also very worried. And now that she doesn't have a job, she's even more worried. So, it was just kind of one of those things where if I had just been doing the whole surface, like I can actually think of a time when my initial reaction would not have been, that's a lot to think about. I would have been like, oh, well, then you should just start selling Tupperware.
I think the big key there is that she feels supported. Like, regardless of what direction she ends up going, if she ends up getting another job, if she ends up realizing that they don't necessarily need her to do that right now, or if she decides to sell some Tupperware, she feels supported and she feels heard. I think that's what you did there. I think that's huge. Yeah, it's very powerful. It is. So Gina said, actually, you have to be positive in order to be enthusiastic. Otherwise it's fake. Yes, absolutely, Gina. That's exactly it. Let's see. I'm just kind of skimming.
Do we want to love our passengers?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to
we should be loving our past. Should have. Let me just kind of glance. I when it talked about, and you made the comment about the Walt Whitman said that we convince by our presence. And when you're enthusiastic, you project an energy that convinces people to get on and stay on your bus. And, you all that are on this call have heard me talk about the day I met Pam Clift. And it was truly, it was pure energy that I felt coming off of her, that it was truly like, I had never, I'd read and I'd studied about like attraction marketing and the law of attraction, all this stuff. I'd never actually had it like totally happen to me in such a bold way than when she came in. I mean, it was like she was just a beacon of positivity and light to the point, it was like the sun, you know, like the sunflower turns to the sun, right? That's exactly me. I mean, like she came and sat down and I'm like, well, hello, who are you? You know, and I just like, I just needed more of it. And so, and that right there is exactly what they're talking about here. That is the positivity and the enthusiasm. And she wasn't over the top. She was just Pam. You know, she just had that vibe, and you just like wanted to be in her presence, regardless of how I could manage to be in her presence. I wanted to be in her presence. And so, and it helped me. It helped fill my cup. It help pull me. Like I was positive and I was always like, but it was more like a cheerleader positivity. Like I'm trying to convince everybody that everything's okay and it's really not, you know. It was just, and so it was a struggle because it was like constantly pouring out of my cup, like a pitcher pouring out. Like, I mean, it was just like, because it was just such an uphill battle and I did not have anything that was fueling me besides me fueling me, like me convincing myself that everything is going to be okay, me convincing myself that I need to look on the positive side, me reading books. At the time we didn't really watch video. I mean YouTube was there, I'm sure, but it wasn't like a big thing that you went to like tap into motivation really fast. And so it was tiring. And so to have somebody like this coming in that was like, wow, you know, but that's exactly what we can deliver as leaders when we're focused on that positivity and that enthusiasm. You know, we can be that person. Yeah. And Gina says, enthusiasm breeds enthusiasm. My guess is your girlfriend felt a sense of positive enthusiasm after speaking with you, Jenny. I agree. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and if nothing else, she felt comforted, you know. And so, and she just felt, like I said, she just felt like connected. And it just, you know, that's very comforting, especially in a moment when you're pregnant, you're scared, you don't know what's going to happen, you know, your securities are slowly being taken away from you, you know. It's a scary place.
And she's not young, so that's the other part of the health risk, because like she said, she was never supposed to get pregnant, so she's probably in her late 40s.
Oh,
yeah.
Kelly's face is like,
Gina just went, oh hell no.
Yeah, well, that's very scary. Wow. Right, yeah, that's very scary then. I mean, because I mean, there's 9 years between Joey and James, and the difference on the toll it took on my body was significant. So the thought of another 10 years and having another baby at my late 40s, I don't know. I can't imagine. But yeah, so it's a scary place to be.
It is. Oh. Okay. Chapter 26? Yes?
Yeah, I guess so. Love your passengers.
Yeah, okay, here we go. Everybody take an enthusiasm pill. Here we are.
It's where the rubber meets the road. You're gonna start loving these passengers.
As Joy motored down the road, she thought about what to say next. She looked away from the road and out to the far right. High above the road was one of those signs that said, "Love is the answer, God." She pointed at the sign and directed George and her passengers to look. "Isn't it amazing," she said, "how the signs of life always appear at the right time to guide us on our journey? I mean, if you're open to the signs and look for them, they'll always tell you where your bus needs to go and what you need for your ride. And best of all, when you use the signs to find the right path and make a decision to follow it, God will move heaven and earth to support you. The right people show up, the right situations fall into place, obstacles dissolve, creative ideas appear. It's how it all works. I don't make the rules, I just understand and teach them." Then she looked at George and said, "That sign was meant for you, sugar. And if you have any doubt, throw it out, because Danny's going to show you rule number 8. Danny lifted up the sign which said, "Love your passengers." "Don't ignore the signs, George. Love is the key for the team's success," she said as George was looking a little surprised right now. He had never heard of anyone talking about love and business in the same sentence. Enthusiasm is important, but love is the answer. To really, really, and I mean really, tap the power of your heart and lead with positive, contagious energy, you must love your passengers. You've got to become a love magnet, she said. At once, everyone in the bus cheered in unison. Love magnet. Love shack?
That's what I was thinking. And in my head, that's what it was to the tune of.
I was like, oh. What the heck is a love magnet? George asked, looking around, not sure if he even wanted to know the answer. Well, you don't become a love magnet by wearing expensive cologne or perfume, she said. And you don't become one by walking around sharing cheesy lines at bars. Well, good, George thought, because he didn't wear cologne, he didn't go to bars. You become a love magnet by loving your employees, your customers, your company, and your family. You become a love magnet by sharing the love generously. Jack stepped in and said, I know it sounds corny to talk about love in the business world, George, but she's right. All any of us really want is to be loved, and all your employees really want is your love. George thought of Jose and realized they were onto something. He told them about Jose and how all he wanted was to be recognized and cared about. George had promised he would do something for Jose to show him, but didn't know what. Love's all he wants, George. You can give all the trophies and awards you want, and sure, a raise would be a good idea for him. But eventually, the gift is forgotten and the excitement of the raise wears off, and what remains is an emotional feeling, a feeling of whether you love them. That's what it's all about, George. Jose and your team want to know that you care about them. They want to know you're concerned about their future and welfare. They need to know you love them. It can't be just about you and your job. It also has to be about them. And when you love them, they'll love you back. If you treat them like a number or your next promotion or your next bonus, they'll treat you like a number. But if you really love and care about them, they will love you back by working hard for you, by being loyal to you, by surprising you with amazing initiative and success stories, and by teaching you as much as you will teach them. It's the same with sales, George. The best salespeople are love magnets. When customers know you love them instead of just seeing them as a new car or boat, they'll never leave you. When they feel the love, they will send you more business and refer more people to you. People do business with people they like and who love them. The more love you put out, the more that comes back to you. And when your team knows you love them and feel the love from you, they will want to stay on your bus wherever it goes. So enthusiasm gets them excited about being on your bus, but love is what keeps them on the bus. This all sounds wonderful, George said skeptically. It really does. But talking about love in business is one thing and practicing it is another. Let's face it. The last time I checked, giving hugs at work is not too popular with human resources. Love, in theory, is wonderful, but how do you practice it at work is my question. And how do you also get past all the people who think love is weak and for wimps? Great point, Jack said. It's not easy. No one said love was, especially in business. But with commitment and practice, there's no better way to enhance the performance and productivity of your team. Regarding love being for the weak, well, they just don't understand the research. Tell them, Marty. Marty explained how a human being is stronger when they are thinking positive, loving thoughts than when they are thinking negative, angry thoughts. People think love is a weak emotion, he said, but really it's the strongest, most powerful emotion available to us. Just try to bench press a lot of weight. If you're thinking loving, positive thoughts, you'll be stronger than if you're thinking negative, angry thoughts. The good news, Jack continued, is that we have the perfect resource to put love into action. We spent a lot of time and energy on this and came up with 5 ways to love your passengers. And these ways are the best practices I have implemented in my company with amazing results, Jack said as he handed George a sheet of paper featuring the 5 strategies. George scanned the paper, but quickly looked out the window and noticed they were about to arrive at his office. Well, we obviously don't have time to go over these, but is there any one of these strategies I should start immediately, George asked, wanting to do all he could as soon as he could. Well, more than anything, George, love takes time, George said. It's a process, not a goal. Love is something that needs to be nurtured. But if there is one thing I urge you to start immediately, it's focus on bringing out the best in each person on your team. When you love someone, you want the best for them. You want them to shine. And the best way to do this is to help them discover the value inside them. Like the rock, George said slowly. Yes, like the rock, George. I was waiting for you to ask me about the rock. You still have it, she asked. Yes, I do, right here, George said as he held it up to show her. Good, because if you had lost that rock, I'd have to put a hurting on you, she said, laughing out loud. Joy then took a towel, poured water onto it, and handed it to George. Now take this wet towel here and wipe the rock, George. Wipe it good. George scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed, and to his surprise, the black came off the rock, and what was left was nothing but shiny gold. Is this what I think it is, he asked. You bet it is, my brother, Joy answered as she jokingly grabbed the rock out of George's hand. That's why you're one lucky man that you didn't lose it. George closed his eyes and laughed. You see, George, dust on gold doesn't change the nature of gold. It's still gold. And your team members, just like you, have a lot of dust on them. The key is to realize that inside every one of them is gold that wants to shine. The value is on the inside. Help them find their gold, George, as I have helped you. Remove their dust. Help them discover their strengths. Allow them to do what they do best. Let them utilize their strengths on a daily basis and know that as they utilize their strengths, their value and the value of the team will increase tenfold. That's love. Letting people share their gifts and strength is real love. And by you loving them and by you helping them find their gold, they will shine, and so will you. That's what being a chief energy officer is all about. When you bring out the best in others, you can't help bringing out the best in yourself. In that moment, Joy stopped talking. Jack stopped talking, and the bus was completely silent. All the passengers knew what this meant. George was ready. Joy had a proud look on her face. They had shared with Joy what he needed to know, and she felt he was ready to make some amazing progress the next 2 days before his big presentation. But she also knew that this was about much more than a product launch. Sure, she wanted him to enjoy success, but she also knew that whether his product launch was successful was really irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. He wouldn't see it that way, of course, so if the launch was a disaster, she would prepare to explain once again that everything happens for a reason, and no matter what he did or where he went from this point on, he was now equipped with the rules to create an incredible life and career at the energy company or somewhere else. He had the rules to win, and rules came with incredible power. His big meeting this Friday would be just one leg of a long journey, and to truly enjoy the ride of his life, he would need to know the final 2 rules. Without them, he'd be missing out on the ultimate fuel for a meaningful and powerful life. No time for that today, Joy thought, as they pulled up to George's office building. Tomorrow we'll get into that. As George walked off the bus, Joy shouted, "Give it all you got today, George. Remember, enthusiasm, love, and gold. And don't forget to love that wife of yours. She needs it too. Share all the love you've got, and tomorrow we'll be here to recharge you." George put his hand over his heart and then over his mouth and blew a kiss to Joy and the energy bus passengers. They didn't know it, but he was more thankful than any of them could possibly realize. As he turned his back and walked away from the bus, ready to share the love and energy, Joy turned to Jack and he looked at her. "He's ready," she said. "I agree," Jack confirmed.
So one of the things that I just loved in this, because I highlighted it and I underlined it, was when you bring out the best in others, you can't help but bringing out the best in yourself. And I think that that's the beauty of the business that we're in, and how fortunate we are that this is our business. Our business is to help others see, as they put the gold inside of them, help them see that. And in doing so, it takes nothing away from us and our value that we bring. It only increased it, and I agree, Gina. The last paragraph of page 118 is my favorite. Yeah, I highlighted pretty much the whole paragraph right there. But it is, I think think about how fortunate we are that we have discovered this business and have really opened ourselves up to the business. There are plenty of people that have discovered businesses like this, but they did not truly open themselves up to everything that is available. And I think that's one of the things that it frustrates me sometimes when I see somebody and I see how amazing they could be, and they're just not tapping in to what we have, right? And then they leave, and then they're just kind of like, "Yeah, I tried that Tupperware thing. It didn't work." And it's like, but you didn't really give it an honest shot. You didn't open yourself up to the possibilities of it. And so I love that. I love that in our process of building other people, it doesn't take it away from us. Whereas in corporate world and things like that, if you build somebody else up too big, then they could pass you and then, they're your boss, right? And you're like, wait, what just happened there? Like, wait, and it happens a lot. People are like, "Yeah, I trained that person and now, they're the boss." And
everything
so,
I know when you're fired. Yeah.
Right. Right. I mean, it's awkward, and it does take something away from them. I mean, there were people that didn't want to train people because of that very reason. They're like, yeah, right, I'm going to train her, and that's going to come back and bite me. And it doesn't come back to bite us. If we just keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it, and it doesn't come back to bite us. We reach out to one and help lift them up, and in the process we're improving ourselves. Reach out, then you just do it again and do it again and do it again and do it again. And I mean, how powerful is that? And how fortunate are we that that's what we do? And that's why it's funny, because there was somebody, it was at conference, it was Janelle Elliott, when I think she was doing just sort of like her acceptance speech or whatever for being number one or something. I don't know. It was one of the times she was talking, and she was kind of talking off the cuff, and she said, she goes, yeah, when people like kind of like ask me about what I do, and I think this all the time, when people ask me about Tupperware, right? Or they say, what do you do? And I say, I sell Tupperware. It's funny because a lot of times in my head, as I'm like, oh, I sell Tupperware, right? It's almost like a Jubilee highlight reel in my head that plays like, yeah, that's kind of, I sell, like you see those commercials and they're like, hey, what was your journey like? And they were like, oh, just one step at a time. And then it's like a highlight reel of all of them falling down, and, this is athlete or something falling down and getting cut from the team and all this other stuff, right? But that happens to me all the time when somebody asks me, especially in a business-like situation, because they really don't get it. And you're there to network with them, and they're business people, and they just think, oh, that's cute. You have a little Tupperware business. That's sweet. And I'm just like, yeah, I do. It's pretty fly, it's just like, but it's difficult to kind of like communicate that with people, because it's just difficult. But that's what we do, is lift people up. I mean, it's so much deeper than selling Tupperware.
This is true. Okay, so Donna says it's hard to tap into the potential when you can't love yourself. And in turn, you can love those around you. Finding that love is the struggle. So just as a side note, I went through a few years of therapy on that whole situation whenever I was a teenager. And somebody, and one of the big things was, well, you can't love other people if you don't love yourself. And I thought that was a bunch of crap, because I didn't love myself. But I loved a lot of other people. I mean, there was a lot of people. But what somebody eventually, in my teenage wonderfulness, got through to me was that if I didn't love myself, I didn't know what love was. Because since I didn't like things about not like things, but because I didn't love myself, I couldn't fully accept other people because I didn't accept myself. And this woman, she was so funny. She was my social worker when I was in foster care. And I was such a pleasant child that she used to pay me to come talk to her. She had to have a meeting with me once a week, and she would give me $10 a week to come and talk to her, but I had to talk. Because when I first started going, I just sat there and looked at her. So I got $10 a week to go tell her what she wanted to hear, which essentially is what I did for a long time. But, she was just very much a part of, there are things, she goes, you don't have to like yourself. She goes, there are things about yourself that you'll never like. And there are things that she goes, and that's good because you can work on them. She goes, but you have to love yourself. You have to get to the point where you know you are worth being loved by other people. And Donna, I agree with you. That is not an easy road to go. And it can take a long time, but you have to accept the fact that even with the faults and the things that go on and everything else, you're basically worth loving. Ask Ellen. Ellen loves me.
Yeah, even when it's hard.
Yes.
Well, but that's love. I mean, and that's exactly what I tell my kids all the time. I'm like, hey, I may not like you right now, but I will never stop loving you. And because Ella, the queen of trying to manipulate the situation in her favor, especially when she was younger. We had a big talk about this yesterday at breakfast. And she would, if I was upset with her, she's like, you don't love me anymore. And she would just fall all over herself. And I'm like, time out. Like, I love you as much, if not more than I did yesterday. I'm mad at you right now. Like I'm just angry with you, but that doesn't mean I don't love you any less. And so it's the same sort of thing. But yeah, Donna, you're absolutely right. It is. And self-love and self-care are two of the absolute most important things in your life, because if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of other people, either physically or emotionally. And so whatever you have to do to recognize that and to realize that, you are here for a purpose, and you were chosen to be here right now to be in these people's lives. That in itself is really, really powerful, because you were chosen. You were chosen. You were chosen not based on your looks, not based on any of those out exterior things. You were chosen by God to be here in this moment. That is worth loving yourself over, and it's so important to recognize that, and to make sure that you make sure that you give yourself that love and that grace to realize, like, yeah, you're flawed. I'm flawed. I'm totally freaking flawed, man. I'm like, if I had to not be flawed in order to love myself, I'd be screwed, and everybody else would be too, because we are all like, we're all flawed. There's nobody that's perfect. Nobody. I don't care how perfect they look on the outside. And no, Jenny, you're not perfect. I see you about to defend it. No, just kidding.
No, what I was going to say
I'm pretty perfect.
was I'm getting a whole lot closer. Is a lot of that has to do with the people you're around.
It does.
Like there are groups of people that will tell you the good things about yourself. And then there's that group of people that are so happy to point out your flaws on a regular and consistent basis that you got to walk away from that bunch.
Yeah.
Because, and so many times, and not walk away like, because a lot of times it's family. I mean,
and they mean well.
They mean well because they're helping you see
right.
what the problem is. Yeah. And instead of saying, hey, you talk to people really well, what they say is, oh my God, you never shut up.
Right. Yeah, that's
not happened to me, but it's sort of, and so even whenever, and it can be hard, but like when people do those negative comments, try and flip it around even in your head to what the positive part of that is.
Yeah. It's very true. It's very true. And, it's funny because, again, yesterday at breakfast, we had a conversation at the table, and I was telling the kids, I was like, I want to take a moment and just appreciate you guys, because there are a lot of teenagers out there that make their household environment like not good with their attitude. Like they show up with the attitude, and it messes with the vibe in the house. And I said, and you guys don't do that. They're teenagers, so they have hormones, and so they're not perfect. Yes, they definitely have attitudes sometimes, but it's not consistent. It's not, I woke up today, therefore I have an attitude. I'm breathing, so therefore I have an attitude, and I'm going to give an attitude and make it difficult for my parents or my siblings or any of that kind of stuff. And it's so important. But, I recognize that Eric and I set that tone. Like, we can't be walking around with an attitude either. They get it from us. And so it's so important to do that, because back to, the self-love and surrounding yourself with these people, if there's somebody in your household that is causing you to not feel good about yourself in any way, shape, or form, that's something that needs to be addressed. Either that, or you need to somehow figure out a way to sidestep it, because you can't just sit there and keep taking the shots. You have to protect yourself in some way, shape, or form. And again, that goes back to the self-love. You have to love yourself enough to say, I've told somebody in my life before, I'm like, my friends don't treat me that way. And so if you continue to treat me this way, just consider us not friends. And it wasn't an easy thing to say, because I did consider this person a friend, but I did not like the way she was treating me. And it was about the third or fourth time that it had happened. And I just stopped. I said, this stops now. And that's literally what I said. I said, this stops now. I said, my friends don't treat me this way. If you consider yourself my friend, you won't treat me this way either. If you continue to do so, just know we will be acquaintances, but we will not be friends. And it was hard for me to say that, but if I hadn't been practicing and really working on that self-love for the time before then, I wouldn't have had the courage to say that to somebody, because I would be like, I mean, who wants to shut down a friendship? I mean, we all need that. We're here for union, communion, and love. That's what we were put on this earth to do, and so it's not a natural thing to cut people out of your life or to like sever friendships. That's not, kind of goes against our main purpose in life. And so, but you also have to be able to protect yourself, because if I had let her continue to treat me that way, I wouldn't have been able to be the best person for all the rest of the relationships and friendships I had in my life, because it would have been, tearing away at my heart and my self-love. And so that's a big subject, Donna. I mean, and it's one that we all struggle with at some point. And I'd like to say, once you get past it, it's behind you and your self-love is completely intact, but it's not. You have to keep working on it, because it can, slip away based on a toxic relationship or just lies that you're telling yourself, And so I loved, and I can't remember who said it this weekend at Jubilee. And they said, it's slipping away from me. They said that just because, what you set out to do, you didn't achieve it, right? So like you set out to be a manager and you didn't achieve that level, it doesn't mean that you're not capable of it. It means that you just took the wrong road, right? And I can't remember who said that, but they were just like, you just took the wrong path to get there. No big deal. Choose another path. It doesn't mean you can't get there. It just means that you took the wrong route, And I mean, think about that just in life, like literally think about a road and you're trying to get someplace and you took the wrong way. You went the long way by accident. You're like, son of a gun, I should have been there 15 minutes ago, right? Or you took the road that the road was closed and you're like, oh, where do I go now? And my GPS isn't working, right? And so that's literally the exact same thing in this business. When you're setting out to do something, just because you didn't achieve it doesn't mean it's not meant to be, doesn't mean you're not meant to be a director, a manager, a successful consultant. It means you just took the wrong road. So recalculate and do it again. And so yeah, but I loved that. And I can't remember who said it now. I don't remember if it was in a training or if it was in somebody's talk. But I was like, yeah, that's so true. Because a lot of times when people, they try to get to that manager level and when they don't hit it, they're just kind of like, oh, well, I tried to be a manager. It just didn't work. And it's like, no. Keep going. And think about people in DIQ and they get to, they roll over to month 4, right? And there's like, oh, I feel like it's never going to happen. No, it's going to happen. You just keep putting in the effort and be consistent with it. It's totally going to happen, whether it happens in month 4 or month 10, right? It doesn't matter, but you just kind of keep going. So I thought that was really powerful.
So my favorite line on all of this is, when you bring out the best in others, you can't help bringing out the best in yourself. Mm-hmm. And I just think, like, I highlighted a lot on this, but I really, really like that. And I think good job, Kelly. I think that works in every area of your life, not only, business, it's just everything. And possibly, like, for me, the biggest thing that I think I did that in initially that helped me start doing it in other areas of my life was with my kids, because I wanted them to know what was the best parts of them. So I would talk about that. And in the meantime, I started, somewhere along the line, I was like, oh, maybe I'm not such a screw up as a mom. We'll see how that goes. But it's the same thing with being a leader. There
are kids.
There are instruction books with being a leader, but let's face it, we don't read them. And, the mom thing comes without a book, but the leader thing comes with books. But we're like, oh no, I've got this. I can do this. This is my business. I don't need somebody else telling me how to do this. I got this. So, and until you start making it about the people on your team, it's a classic fail.
It's a struggle. It's really a struggle. You can still be successful, like in the numbers and like and be have like the picture of
But
success, but it's not fun.
It's not fun.
Yeah.
It's very stressful. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to love what you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you want them to love what they're doing too, so
Yes.
that they do it better.
Well, because that makes you love what you do more when you see somebody else loving what they do, what's
Yeah.
the same thing as you.
It is. It's
Like-
totally like it's cyclical, right? And it's just like we love what we do, and then we affect other people to love what they do, and then that fuels our fire, and then we do it again and we do it again, because it is when you have somebody on your team that is like so excited, and then they come to you and there's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited because I didn't think I could do this and I managed to do it, and you're like, yeah, go you. It fuels us too. And so that, again, that's the beauty of it, is when you're building other people, it doesn't take anything away from you. In the moment, sometimes you do get a little bit weary if you are working with a lot of people and they're tapping into your energy a lot, but it doesn't take much for it to come back, right? It doesn't I mean, like, it's just like that one person that's just like so excited, and you're like, oh my God, I'm so excited for them. They're actually doing it and they're succeeding and it's going to impact their family. And this is so amazing. And it lifts you up. I mean, it really does.
I think that's why it's so important to know as much as you can. And the bigger teams, it's harder. I understand, like where I'm at right now, I know pretty much everybody.
What they ate for breakfast?
Well, no, I don't want to know what they ate for breakfast, 'cause then it just makes me hungry. But like the different ways it's actually affecting their life. Like I have a girl right now that she's starting graduate school the end of this month. And she wants to put the extra income in place before she starts graduate school so that she has people working with her, not for her, but with her. And that's what I told her. I said, you don't want people that are going to work for you, because they won't do it. That's not what they want, but she wants people that are working with her so that she doesn't have to work as hard to get her manager numbers. And I said, but just think about, the way you're helping them make money for themselves while they're helping you make money to get through graduate school and keep your son in lunch money, because it's a very real struggle sometimes.
Yes, it is.
So, but yeah, I just, it's easier to help them or to get excited for them when you know how it's impacting them.
Right. When it's personal.
Yeah.
And it is more, it just takes more time with the bigger teams, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible at all. What are your priorities? Is that the type of leader that you want to be? Then go out and be that leader. Don't let other people. And for years, I let other people influence me and convince me. I didn't have time because I had a larger team or organization. And because they just had me convinced that, oh, well, I can't possibly do that because my team's too big and my org's too big. You know what? No, it's not. If that's the way I want to lead, then I'll figure it out. I'll figure out the time. I'll make it work somehow, some way. Don't let other people influence you away from what your heart is telling you to do as a leader, because it's going to be hard. All the best things in life, a lot of the most rewarding and amazing things in life, they don't necessarily come easy. Sometimes you have to take the long road. Sometimes you take the hard road, but that's what makes it worth it. And it just like from day one, probably, I think at the end of my first month in the business, Pam said to me, Ellen, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And it always has stuck with me whenever I kind of am at that point where I'm just like, this is exhausting. Like, oh, I'm kind of tapped out, and, there's a lot of emotion going on right now on my team, or whatever the situation is. Everybody's really high maintenance right now on my team or whatever, because you have like an influx of new people and they just are babies. And so you need to baby them, whatever it is. And I tell myself, I'm like, you know what, if it was easy, everyone would do it. If it was easy, everyone would do it, and that's the key. And that's the difference between good leadership and great leadership, is when you push through, even when it's not easy and when it's not fun,
Oh, my phone's blowing up. Pam once told me, and actually this kind of like stuck with me to make me work back this year, is think of this like it's college. It's not easy at first. And then once you get there, it'll start riding out and be easier. Like think of right now as college, and then work for it. You have to work for it.
It's true.
You have to study, you have to learn, you have to do all that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the other thing is too, a lot of times people come into this business and they're not willing to be trained. They're not open to being trained, even if they show up and stuff. If you start any job, you have to be trained. Sometimes your training program takes a year. It depends upon the job. I mean, Eric, with the job that he's at right now, he had to be trained. He had to go to Chicago for 2 weeks to be more trained. And then he was in a probationary period of extended training that he had to do training like 3 times a week or something for almost, it goes up to a year. He ended up being in that program for 9 months because he excelled out of it. But so when people come into Tupperware, they're expecting by the end of month 1 to know everything they're doing. It's an unrealistic expectation, you know? And so it is. I mean, I think sometimes there's like some weird misconception about like, and I love Pam said like a week ago or something on one of our calls, she says, you have never arrived in this business. And that's the key to the business. You have never, if you go at this business with the attitude of that you will never arrive, you will always keep continuing to grow and learn and better your best, right? And I loved that because I've seen lots of leaders that have thought they have arrived. And once they did, things started to crumble because they just honestly got too big for their britches. You know, they got this ego of like, well, I know what I'm doing because I am a blah, blah, blah director, whatever the title is, you know, and that's not, nobody cares. Nobody cares about your title. Like they really don't. They care about what it is that you're doing to contribute, to help them, to help the mass, to help champion, you know, that's where your title lies. Honestly, it's in your involvement and things like that. And showing the love and being enthusiastic and being positive. I think that's, I mean, if there was some, maybe that is the CEO, maybe that is what the title that we're going after, to be the chief energy officer, you know, maybe that's it. Maybe it's not 2-star, 3-star, whatever star, you know, maybe that's what it is. But yeah, so, all right. Does anybody have anything else they want to share? Jenny, you so look like you're on the verge of saying something.
I'm good.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody. This was great. I love starting our Mondays together. All right. So next week we'll be covering the love rules. That sounds dirty. All right. So we'll be covering the love rules.
Like I'm in a 70s hippie conference or something.
What's happening? And apparently we're going to go over fear and trust too.
There we go.
Trust fall, anyone?
Awesome. We're in the commune down in.
It's getting weird. It's getting really weird.
Trust and love. Trust and love.
Take our energy bus.
Take the energy bus to the commune, and we're all going to talk about trust and love. Here we go.
Oh my goodness. Well, I hope everybody has an awesome day and we make this a great week. I'm excited to see all the recruiting that's going to go on this week. See how everybody ends up.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I'm just kidding. I know I'm a big competitor.
You are very competitive.
She's very competitive.
And I think it's kind of funny. I'm actually not competitive, but I think it's funny to compete against you because you're so competitive.
I know, and I love it.
She'd be like, "Where are you at?" And I'd be like,
"Where are you at?" I'm like,
"I'm at home."
Who's in the lead?
Yeah. Lori Mortis is really competitive too. That's why I thought it was funny when I ended up getting that spirit stick, because the two of you were like bound and determined to get it, and I was like, oh.
So sad. Oh.
I just kept saying, if I need one, I'll make another one.
I kept saying I don't want it.
Got the spirit stick? No, but I know how to get one.
It's one in storage. It's just missing some spirit.
You know how to make one.
I have extra ponytails. Okay.
James was looking at it the other day and he was kind of like, what is this? He goes, did you put these stickers on here? I'm like, no, I didn't. That way.
That's funny.
All right, everybody. Well, have an awesome day. Have an awesome week. I'll see you guys tonight or tomorrow or Wednesday, any of the days. I'm sure we'll see each other.
There you go. Every day.
We're all best friends.
I know. Every day. Several times a day.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.